Hello, good evening to all in IIT. Uh, I'm really excited to come and make this presentation to all of you. And before I begin, let me thank Dr. Manivannan for inviting me to this exciting summit. And I really miss being there in person, but I'm sure you're having a wonderful session there. I'm also missing meeting several of my old friends, Steve, Dr. Mandyam, and others. But hopefully, in very soon, in another event, we can all do that. So today, my talk is going to be on uh, on use of AR, VR, and XR, looking at mental health and well-being. So I'm going to focus on why this is an important area and what are some of the things that we are doing here at University of Albany and with our collaborators. Before I begin, let me just spend a minute talking about University of Albany, where I am a faculty. University of Albany is one of the four major campuses in the State University of New York system. We are categorized as a Carnegie R1 public research university, one of the 126 universities, I believe, in US that is categorized as an R1 university, 23,000 students. And we also take a lot of pride in the fact that 40% of our undergraduate students come from underrepresented communities. So we do a lot for the society here. Some of the very exciting things that are going on in our campus. We have begun something called AI Plus program, which is an AI program that encompasses the entire campus. We just last month launched a very large NVIDIA cluster, the largest university-based cluster to be installed in 2024, one of the top three in the country. So AI is very big in our campus. We also have very close relationship with IBM, and IBM is actually a tenant in our semiconductor complex where they develop some of the leading AI chips. One of the chips that has come out of IBM is called AIU. We have a whole system in our campus, and we inaugurated a $20 million center to push this new AI technology that IBM is working on right now. Okay, let me now jump to today's topic. So, mental health is one of the biggest challenges in the world. About 1 in 8 people has some mental disorder, and 71% of the people do not receive any mental health services at all. It is very under-resourced. Only 2% of the total health budget in the US is invested in health, in the mental health, and it's told that it's probably worse in many other countries. And there are a lot of issues in mental health, including things like stigma attached to that. And in some countries, people actually do not openly talk about mental health. But mental health is not the only challenge which is which has an issue with the well-being of the people. Depression, cultural gaps between people, communication, all of these issues are serious issues. So at UAlbany, we have been working on collaborating with several universities and trying to do some pioneering work in using VR solution in looking at the mental health um, epidemic and also looking at how it focuses on underserved communities worldwide. Why VR for mental health? Well, everyone, I'm sure, in the room understands that VR is a phenomenal tool for training. It's a great tool in gaming and entertainment, but VR is also a very powerful tool for making some real impact for society, for public good. And I would say many reasons. One, building virtual reality therapies, can give you an environment where you can retain privacy. When I say retain privacy, very often people don't like going to hospitals or mental health clinics because people do not want to be seen there. VR is a way to do this in a privacy. Second, we can integrate things like AI, we can integrate case based and evidence based solutions. And the technology provides immersion realism that is better than what you can do on a tablet or in a computer. So we can really engage people's interest in providing therapies, right? And finally, the cost of doing VR has gone down so much that instead of investing in very large buildings, we could put this in a small box and send it anywhere in the world and use that for diagnostic purposes at the same time looking at therapy purposes. So our vision is to really build a global lab for doing this, and I'm hoping that from today's discussion, we'll find a lot of interest in working with many of you to develop a technology solutions that is not only relevant in US, but also relevant in India and other places in the world. Um, so our work in this field actually has some interesting background. One, it brings engineers, computer scientists, and people who actually work in the technology of VR. It also brings people who can envision scenarios. There's a technical artist and people who can build environments and so on and so forth. But then it also brings in social scientists, psychologists, people who look at therapy, maybe they're doctors, maybe they are people who's working on the on mental well-being and yoga and things like that. So all of these people work together as a multidisciplinary team in attacking this problem because this is not a problem that can be addressed by one part or the other, right? And so that is the most exciting thing about the use of VR in this field is that it brings many, many different parts of the campus and the society to work together. So we have a four-pronged approach here. We are looking at identifying the health challenges first, then developing a curriculum on that, and deciding what kind of VR tools can be used, and then also look at human studies, a study that in a real-world environment, so we can see if this actually works or not. So today, I'm actually going to talk about the whole process of how we do this and some technologies that we have developed in the process that is now being evaluated, and we'll walk through that, and hopefully it'll give you some sense of what VR can do in this field. So I will have a discussion about both the technology and the use case by showing two different types of uh, situation. The first one is to show how you can train doctors to recognize the patient's mental state and learn about their own bias. And I will talk a little bit more about bias as I talk as go forward. This technology is developed using 360-degree videos. The second I'm going to talk about is how VR can support cancer patients and patients who have chronic conditions, right? Two of the cases that we have been working on is looking at lung cancer patients who are undergoing chemotherapy and dialysis patients. So let's see what VR can do for these different groups. So the first one is a collaboration between my group and also the principal investigator, Dr. Cherry Thompson, who's a social scientist and works on looking at the impact of society. So what we're trying to do here is two things. One is helping physicians to see how patients are behaving, and second, look at implicit bias. What do you mean by implicit bias? Well, everyone has a preset notion, right? These biases could be about people. Like, for example, when we see someone dressed in a certain fashion, we build some bias about them that we assume that this person is educated or not educated. And very often these things are not uh, quite aligned with the reality, right? This actually happens a lot in medical field, right? Like people would come and I remember when I was younger, I would go to my family doctor, and my family doctor, even before looking at with me, would assume certain things about me because he knew many of my family members. Some of them were actually medically accurate, but some of them were really biased he had on our family tree or family and things like that. But in US, a big issue is that doctors have a certain preset notion about black women. Yeah, one of the notion, for example, is that black women can withstand more pain than white women or other people. And this is a bias that we are trying to overcome. So if you look at black women and their health condition, um, the maternal the childbirth mortality rate is 3 to 4 times higher than any other community in US. Okay, very often they feel they're disrespected, they're devalued, and this leads to very poor cultural competency. And there are a lot of studies that show that the black maternal health issue is also tied to the mental health of black women, simply because a lot of time doctors do not take them seriously. So that is where the implicit bias comes in. So to reduce that, we are thinking how we could use VR to create this cultural competency where we can look at attitude, skill, and knowledge so that the next generation of clinicians and doctors, they do not actually perceive black women with their own clouded or colored glasses. So this curriculum that we developed for implicit bias actually has three parts. The first part is called an observational part. It's a VR environment which we developed that I will talk a little bit more as I go along. And the second one is a self-testing. The self-testing environment is where you actually talk to a virtual patient, and as you talk, the system will analyze, and at the end, using AI, provides some feedback to you. And the feedback may say things like, here is your bias, right? And then that actually can help you overcome some of the situation, right? So these are the two. Two, and then looking at the part three, where we are looking at a broader impact on the cultural centered manners and how people interact with patients and things like that, right? Which is a very challenging thing as a new doctor is learning this process. The part one is where we are emphasizing right now. Part two is now ongoing work, but part one, we have actually done some work, right? So now getting a little bit into the technology. The whole technology is built on a platform that is developed at University of Illinois, was licensed to a startup called Airway Labs. And for full disclosure, I'm also a co-founder of this company. We have a four-step process, which we call AV360 process, where we can build a curriculum, and then we take them into a simulation center. These are simulated rooms where simulated doctors and patients can talk to each other. We capture the whole interaction 360 degree, and then we overlay them with NLP based interactions where the person who's viewing the case can actually talk and get feedback, so they can give their opinion. They will be stopped and will be asked, like, for example, what did you see today? What do you think about the patient? And then you can answer, and I'll show you a quick demo on that. And after that is over, the whole thing can be deployed on a head-mounted display, on an HMD, or on a touch tablet. But most of the work we have done is on an HMD display. So I'm going to run a quick video here, and I'll start midway through. So what you're seeing here is a simulated patient. If you insist. And a simulated patient, she is actually talking to a doctor. And what you're going to notice is that she has a lot of concern, but this doctor is really not taking her seriously, right? And also is talking over her. And then as a student or as another doctor, I'm watching this in VR and I'm giving some feedback later on. So let's watch this conversation. I will come and talk a little bit because the way they speak English sometimes is hard to follow. So I will give some background. Gestational diabetes. I really think your symptoms are just symptoms of pregnancy, But I do think if you watch what you eat, you're going to feel a lot better. If you insist, I guess we can, do it early, but it's really not necessary right now. We'll just have to do it again later. Yeah, I just would like to get that scheduled just to be on the safe side sooner rather than later. I also have a question about the birthing center. Mm-hmm. My cousin is a doula. I would really like for her to be by my side at labor and delivery. And the way I see it, it would be your practices midwife, as well as my cousin in the delivery room. Okay. That would make me comfortable. Cousin certified? I mean, I really would discourage something like a home birth in your case because you are high risk, and you want
want to be in the hospital just in case something happens.
Doctor, you never discussed me being high risk. What is high risk? What's going
You
on?
have hypertension, and at 34, you're spring chicken. That on top of being African American means you're more likely to develop preeclampsia and then deliver preterm.
Preterm? What is? We didn't discuss
Worry
this.
about it. Everything is okay. If you deliver in hospital, it's going to be best for you and the baby. In the meantime, remember to have that 20-week scan today and schedule a follow-up with me to go over the results. Okay?
So as you can see, uh, she wants to have a home delivery, but he simply brushes her off, and she's really not concerned. So now, the VR system is actually asking you questions. How do you think the interaction went? And it gives you a chance to give your own analysis. There is multiple ways to do that. You can actually talk to this VR system, and there is an NLP system that actually goes and looks at your response and then categorizes the response so that it can provide you an answer at the very end. Uh, then so this actually gives you a very good understanding of what happens in a room, what should happen, what is the right way to do it, and then it asks a specific question. What do you think about the communication? Do you think this person was kind to talk? Did you think that the provider was making the patient uncomfortable, right? How many times did the patient refer to her weight, right? So these are to check whether you're actually monitoring this, right? But at the same time, um, the system
really feel
is
like
also giving you some factual facts, information about this patient.
Always
Right?
something new. You have to wait.
So I will keep on moving here. So this is a full case, and this was developed in the platform which I mentioned through AV Labs called AV Authoring Platform, where you can bring the all the data screen, the video, and then sit and create that, and then use the NLP integration so that you can have naturally talking. You can also do quiz using NLP and also pull in information and things like that. So this is a great way to do it. So we did a pilot study on that. This pilot study was looking at attitude and implicit bias and attitude towards cultural competency. And how do participants intend to use the training and so on and so forth. So we had 30 medical students who actually participated in that. Some of them were actually undergraduate medical students and some were residents. And 70% of them were women. And we saw some good results. Attitude. We looked at pre-consult. They were asked a few questions, and then they went through the VR training, and then we looked at the attitude as well. Same thing about their opinion, whether their beliefs matched in what you learn. So a set of criteria, and some of the results is actually quite encouraging to show that just having this VR training for about 15 minutes does create immediate awareness of the situation. So here are some of the things that we heard from the participation, that the engagement was very good, effectiveness was very good. There were some people who said that I've seen these examples of aggression by providers during training, and this is very accurate. The VR is very accurate. I like the breakdown of each scene because I learned things I had noticed before, and the findings are promising. And this is an ongoing work. We have an NIH proposal in the National Institute of Health proposal to see how this can be increased. Now, in the last 2 minutes, let me talk about another project we are working on. We are looking at VR to help people who are undergoing dialysis. Again, dialysis is a very tough process, 3 to 4 times hours, 3 times a week people have to go through, and people have depression and things like that. And we have seen that there are a lot of tablet-based technology have been introduced, but these tablet-based technologies are hard to use in a hospital sometimes due to infection. And also people have seen that people are not as engaged using tablet, even though some studies showed that they're very good. So we are actually looking at so what are the kind of problems people face during hemodialysis, and then we want to do an exposure of these patients while the dialysis is going on to wear a HMD, and then see if this really helps them or not, right? So can we be distracted? Can VR help, and things like that? Now, this technology, I'll jump here for time's sake. this technology was completely developed using the VR, and then this is like a mindfulness type of training. It has several mindfulness lessons based on something called Dahlia, and we actually implemented two of them in complete VR. In this case, it was done completely in Unity. The curriculum was developed, as you can see, the Excel sheet, and then we did some pre-visualization. So this took us actually more than a year, as opposed to the previous one, which actually we did in less than 2 months, simply because of the technology process. So here, the mindfulness training is completely in VR, where you can actually go and make a coffee, talk to this person, go out in an open area, and things like that, right? So again, we had to model the avatar. This is a person who will make, if you order, tell I want to have a coffee, he will make a coffee and bring it. All immersive. It's very engaging, very nice way, and it gives you some kind of a mindfulness training. So finally, the end product, which is developed and released, actually works in a very crisp, nice VR manner, and this has already been deployed for some testing. So the test we did, a study was done of this, and I'll give you some very early results. This is the paper still which is pending, so I don't want to go too deep into that. But let's look at anxiety. People showed that this joviality that we developed, that the anxiety actually reduces after going through this VR, and shows that it has some value in using it for cancer training. Pain, same thing with pain as well. People feel less pain after going through this mindfulness using VR. Fatigue is reduced. At the same time, we are also looking at nausea. People who go through this sometimes have nausea, and being engaged actually reduces some of these things. So in conclusion, I think that XR VR technology has tremendous potential in wide range of mental well-being and cultural competency applications. Right, we just showed two of them here. The cost and the low resources needed to deploy it means that it can be used in many different environments. And we looked at two use cases, and this is just a beginning. And I'm sure that these kind of technologies can be used in much more different application. So I want to stop here, and thank you all for giving me a chance to make this presentation. And I'll be happy to respond to you offline by email or any other ways. So Dr. Manivandan will be happy to share my contact information. So good luck. I hope you have a wonderful time and rest of the conference. Thank you. Have a good day.